after the podcast was finished last week, we weren't able to include this story, so we're going to talk about it this week. And that's basically that metrics started showing up about PlayStation Plus and their subscriber count after the revamp of their PlayStation Plus service. This is where they revamped PlayStation Plus into 3 different tiers, which is I think it was Essential, Extra, and Ultimate, if I'm correct on that.
Premium.
Premium, thank you. So they revamped them into 3 tiers, offering different types of services. In the Extra, I think it was more of a Game Pass kind of thing, where they would have different types of games that you can get with the subscription. And then the Premium allowed you to play old school PlayStation games as well with that Premium thing. Well, after the initial sales of that revamp, it looks as if that PlayStation Plus has lost 2 million subscribers after its revamp in June. Zero, what are your thoughts on PlayStation Plus losing all the subscribers right after the revamp?
It's a bit funny because for the sake of the podcast and for just investigative purposes, I decided to go ahead and do the premium upgrade for my account.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just they talked a huge game on, we're going to really revisit the PlayStation vintage catalog, and we're going to make more digital stuff available for people to play on PS5 and everything. And just after a lot of huffing and puffing about it, they don't really have much to show for it. I think really the only significant update that happened recently was a bunch of PS3 Ratchet and Clank games got put on to celebrate the Ratchet and Clank anniversary last week. And since then, there hasn't been any major talks or announcements on what's on the horizon in the future, or any further progress on them working on the PlayStation 3 emulation to be actually native on the PS5 system versus the PS3 emulation being farmed out to the cloud. So just they haven't done really much to really make good on the whole we value our legacy. We want to really show that we care about the long legacy that the PlayStation brand has. And to play devil's advocate in Sony's favor, maybe it's because some of the PlayStation games that they want to put on the service are things that might have some sort of licensing holdup. So maybe that's the issue. I don't know. I'm not someone who works for Sony or knows anybody who works at Sony, but maybe that could be the cause. I don't know, but there's just been a lot of radio silence. This whole this whole cloud emulation thing for PlayStation 3 being shifted to actual local emulation on the PS5. No further announcements on, hey, we're going to be bringing the next batch of PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games to the PlayStation Plus Premium tier. Just no sort of talk on any of that. And it's just a really disappointing show for something that they were touting as one of the big reasons to make the upgrade. And even though I paid for the upgrade out of my own pocket for investigative purposes, even I kind of feel cheated out of my money, to be honest.
Yeah.
The other part, I think, likely is a factor on why the numbers on subscribers were dropping is they decided to make the ability to play PlayStation games through the PlayStation Now service. They decided to bundle that in with PlayStation Plus Ultimate. And previously you had people who were more than happy to just keep a PlayStation Now subscription, even though they may not have owned a PlayStation 4 to play some of the games and stuff like that. Now, basically holding that potential thing hostage behind a PlayStation Ultimate subscription, instead of converting those people who were more than happy to just remain as PlayStation Now customers, they've just gone and said, fuck this, I don't care anymore. I'm not gonna continue on with this. I'll just play my PlayStation Now account until it runs out of time, and once it does, I'm through. I'm no longer going to really mess around with PlayStation stuff anymore. So that was another failure on their part to account for some people who might not really have a need for PlayStation Plus Ultimate. Maybe they were just perfectly fine with being PlayStation Now customers, and instead of being able to retain those people, now those people are completely lost to them, and all due to the fact that they weren't going to make the conversion. Another potential loss by Sony there, and in my mind, that kind of speaks to Sony just sort of overplaying their hand.
Sony was in a bind in the beginning as well. I mean, when we talked about this before it was released, we weren't really impressed with what they were giving us in the beginning. And that's a problem, because if you're the second one out of the gate, you're expected to you're not just do as well as the first person who's doing it. You have to do it better in order to get the sales. And they're not even matching the quality of Game Pass at this point, is my opinion at least, when it comes to the two services. Bear in mind also that the UI to look up everything on the PlayStation 5 is pretty bad. So if you want to look at what games are available, you have to do a lot of digging in order to do that too. And that's the same thing on their app as well. Their app is terrible as well when it comes to searching for games and looking for things that you're interested in, or looking at sales at that point as well. What they've offered as well is not very hot either. That's been the other issue. And the other thing that I think that I don't think anyone really put into consideration is the PlayStation library, PS1, PS2, that people would actually want to play and go back to. Most of these games are games that I think companies know that you want to go back to those games and would rather resell them to you instead of put them on a service like that. Like, if you would have had, I don't know, Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy Anthology, like a bunch of other Square Enix games, Romancing Saga, or Saga Frontier 2, if you had those games on there, you probably would have had a lot of people saying, oh, God, I remember those games. I'd love to play them again. But Square Enix knows that, and since they know that, they would rather sell it to you for $50 again with a whole bunch of special features. And it's only until, I guess, after those things go to the wayside is when they will then put it on that service. So I think that was the other problem. I mean, with Nintendo specifically, well, Nintendo also sells that service for dirt cheap. So the pricing is fine for what they're offering. So, like, if you pay $20 a year, you get NES and Super NES games you can play through the cloud for free on that. Or if you want to pay $60, you get N64. Okay? Was it $18 a month for PS1, PS2, PS3, and PSP? And and they don't offer much, and what they offer isn't that great. So what are you expecting at that point then? Like, if you're not offering something that people want to play, at that point, I don't understand why you would expect them to actually upgrade to the services. I am shocked that they lost subscribers, because them mentioning that PlayStation Plus lost subscribers means that they tuned out the entire service. They didn't just go from, oh, well, I'll get off of extra or premium and go back to basic. They didn't do that. They literally said, oh, fuck this, I'm done. That's essentially what they said. So I guess that's the other problem too, that if you put that tier system out there and you don't make it viable enough to say, hey, it's worth getting it, you'll be dumb for you not to, and then someone says, well, no, that's dumb, I'm not going to pay $18 for this, but then you're going to expect me to pay $60 a year for something that I feel I'm not getting enough of? Like, that's going to have people tune out, I guess is what happened. I think that's what shocks me. If the story was people downgraded from premium extra to basic, or to, essential, they knocked themselves down to essential after a month, then I would have been like, yeah, I can understand that. That's not a big deal. But them actually saying, no, I'm out of PlayStation Plus entirely, that surprises me. That surprises me to a certain extent. And I would love to know, I would love to speak to some of these people and ask, why did you get out of the service altogether after this? That's what I'm curious about.
And just the point that you've made about just people just completely checking out from just even PlayStation Plus in general, that is probably a bigger sign of issues, because of the fact that they didn't just like you said, just downgrade and say, okay, well, I was on PlayStation Plus Premium for a month. It really didn't make it worth my while. I'll just bump myself back down to Essential. No big deal.
Right.
But instead, people just checked right the hell out. That is something that speaks to a bit of a larger issue. And we all know that companies like Microsoft and Sony really, really, really care about the retention numbers and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine with this drop in users, whoever is in charge of the PlayStation Plus department probably has all the alarm bells going off. There's probably executives probably knocking down on that person's door going, yo, what the fuck is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And what the fuck is your plan to save this?
Right.
I imagine it's probably code red, all hands on deck. You guys better figure this the fuck out and figure out why people are quitting, because this is not what we want.
So what do you think is the reason that they lost the subscribers? Is this a bigger PlayStation issue? Like, is this an issue with the console that people maybe aren't happy with? Or is this or do you think this is specifically to the service?
Personally, I think it's just the service. I mean, on the multiplayer side, just anyone who's serious about multiplayer games, they're probably just maintaining at least the essential
Right.
level of service, because they're probably just like, well, I can't play Call of Duty online without the multiplayer, so guess I'll keep on paying for the for PlayStation Plus to ensure I can get into multiplayer games. So that camp's already spoken for. But it's the people that are in between those that are just like, I just bought my PS5 for single player games and unique games from Japan that don't have any sort of online connectivity, so just I don't need Plus. And then between that camp and the hardcore multiplayer junkies where they're just like, I have to have one of the tiers of PlayStation Plus to enable me to get online and play online stuff. There's that middle camp that might occasionally play multiplayer stuff, but also maybe value some of the unique single player experiences that PS5 can provide. That's the camp that they need to figure out why that they're leaving, because I imagine most people who are leaving are right in that middle camp. And honestly, in my opinion, I think it's just the fact that PlayStation Plus right now is just a bad value proposition, and just the tier system just makes it all the more confusing. Whereas with Microsoft and the whole Xbox Game Pass thing, before that, I mean, you had the regular Game Pass tier and then the Game Pass Ultimate tier, but I know Microsoft has been pushing towards a idea of trying to get people to upgrade up to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, because it's kind of a all-in-one thing. There's no confusion. Everything's clearly detailed on what you get for your $15.99 plus tax where applicable price per month, with all the bonuses, perks, and services that you get with that. So I think honestly, maybe Sony needs to go back to the board, reevaluate everything, and maybe try to streamline things, but also give the PlayStation gamers something that shows that the money that they're paying for the PlayStation Plus Premium membership is worth the money, that it's not just a kind of desperate attempt to say, hey, look, we're doing Game Pass things too, because just trying to meet the bare minimum of Game Pass is not going to be enough for Sony to kind of maintain a lead in the long run, because I think in the long run, Xbox has the advantage, especially with the value proposition that Game Pass provides.
Yeah. I think this is a repudiation on everything Sony's been doing right now. I think Sony and the PlayStation 5 have a lot of issues that I think people have essentially stopped talking about or don't acknowledge that is starting to bear fruit at this point. First off, the whole thing about Game Pass that is exciting to everybody is that first-party Microsoft games are available day one, and people will buy Game Pass for that alone at most points, even when there's nothing coming out that month. they'll still keep that Game Pass because, oh, I'll get the Xbox exclusives, but I also get all these other games too. So that's fine. If you're not offering that, something that will be a linchpin for a lot of people to, like let's say God of War Ragnarok was available day one on that pass. I think everyone would get that pass. Be like, I would be stupid not to. Like, that would be a perfect way for them to say, oh, and guess what? It's on our pass. It's on PlayStation Plus. I think people would snatch that immediately and would want that. So automatically, Microsoft has one better on you on that one. The second thing also is with the PlayStation 5, okay? I don't know if you've had issues with your PlayStation 5, but I've had a lot of issues with my PlayStation 5, and I know other people have as well. I've had my PlayStation 5 crash and have to repopulate and reformat my PlayStation 5 about twice since I've had it. I now have an issue where if I have a external USB drive and I stick it into the PlayStation 5, and this wasn't in the beginning, but now if I have an external USB drive and I stick it into my PlayStation 5, it freezes the PlayStation completely until I unplug the drive, and then the PlayStation runs just fine. You also have, so there's a bunch of technical issues that are still not ironed out yet. You also have UI issues. The UI, okay, looks clean, but if you're searching for a game, it takes way too long to find it. So, like, I have a ton of games on my PlayStation, okay? I bought a lot of games on PlayStation 4 last generation. I barely bought any Xbox One games. So if I'm looking for a game, it is a pain in the ass to find it. And then on top of that, the store is not well done, like I mentioned in the beginning. The store is not very well maintained either. Searching for new games, searching for specific games, DLC, it's clunky. And if you want to find out what's new on the service, you have to go to 3 or 4 different screens in order to do that. So if you're making it, if you have to do all these things just to know what kind of value you have, people are going to think that, oh, there's no value in this because they're not showing me the value. I think PlayStation and Sony need to look at their systems right now. And first off, iron out all the problems. Get rid of those technical problems. And then redo the UI. Like, for the PlayStation 4, it was fine, I guess. But even then, I wasn't thrilled with the PS4 when it came to its UI. But to then basically do the same UI, but maybe a little cleaner, but make it a little more clunkier, didn't work well with me on this generation. And I know people praise the PS5 for its controller, but the controller can only be so good that the controller is not going to help when your UI stinks and your store is clunky to go through and you don't know how to search for your games. They have a ton of issues they have to iron out. And I think the main thing they have to start in the beginning is work on the backbone of the system itself and then rework the UI so that you can predominantly showcase that tier. Because that's what Xbox does. I'm not entirely a fan of the Xbox UI, but the UI on the Xbox is a lot better. Because they have their own, oh, you want Game Pass? Okay, press down. There it is. Game Pass. Oh, pressing the Game Pass button. Here are all the games you can get. Oh, okay, cool. You can't do that on PlayStation. You have to go in the store, let it load, go to subscriptions, let it load. Oh, here is the PlayStation subscription. Do you want it? Okay, what's in the PlayStation subscription? Okay, click on this one. Let it load. Here are these games. Is that it? No, there's these games. Okay, click on this. Let it load. If you give them too many options to back out, they're going to back out. You have to make it like immediately available to see what is good about your service. If you can't do that, no one's going to buy it at this point. What do you think?
Yeah, and to your point about the system being a little bit clunky and kludgy, one of the big things that I have issues with right now is the USB hard drive that I have in my PS5 right now is a tiny little Samsung 500 gig SSD that I have plugged in via USB port, which it's great if I want to transfer stuff between my PS5 and and the external hard drive and everything because the SSDs are pretty quick. Problem is that poor little SSD has filled up in space. And the PlayStation 5 right now only recognizes one external hard drive. That's right, one single drive.
Ugh.
Whereas my Series X has two hard drives plugged into it. One of them was a 2 terabyte hard drive that's been with me since my Xbox One, and then a 4 terabyte drive that I've been trying to slowly move all my stuff over so I can just make the former 2 terabyte drive into a PlayStation 5 storage drive. Well, the problem is that in theory, if I were to clean off everything from the 2 terabyte drive and then plug it into the PS5 is just going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can only read and access one drive only." So either you need to disconnect the 500 gig SSD and plug in this new drive, and we'll get to formatting it, and then you can re-download all your stuff again, or you can keep that 500 gig SSD in a USB enclosure, and that'll be that. And there's no option to have multiple drives and just manage the multiple drives between which files you want on the externals and which ones that you want to transfer to the actual PlayStation 5 NVMe SSDs. So it's a real pain in the ass right now because I'm just kind of in sort of like this bit of a proverbial situation of, okay, well, if I want space to store a lot of the PS4 games that I want to be able to access every once in a while when I've got the whim to play some PS4 digital stuff, or if I want to just store off some stuff that I might come back to later on when I decide to play them again and they're PS5 games, then it's either, hey, I guess I can use this 500 gig SATA SSD for my PlayStation 5 stuff and just have that for rapid transfer, but in order to use that, then I'd have to disconnect the 2 terabyte and then vice versa. So real pain in the ass, whereas the Xbox can manage multiple drives, and hell, you can even point to which drive you want certain stuff to be stored on. So if you're just like, hey, if my internal NVMe SSD in my Xbox Series X fills up, then use this one terabyte SATA SSD that I've got plugged in via USB for like overflow storage. And if you're doing downloads for like Xbox One games or other vintage Xbox games, then you can point those to use like an 8 terabyte storage drive or something. Just there's so many things that Microsoft gets right with just how the Xbox is set up, and Sony, with as nice and as powerful as their hardware is, it's like their software is just so behind. And on top of that, just add into your point about just the UI just being real kludgy to just kind of find your games and stuff like that. I think it wasn't until like a recent update that they added the ability to make folders on PS5. And it was one of those things that kind of had me scratching my head. I was just like, wasn't this a feature you guys added to the PS4 late in the life cycle? How the hell did PS5 not have this feature right from the get-go?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's terrible. And I think, honestly, Sony, in all intents and purposes, on every aspect of the console and of their business plan, came into this like they did in the PS3 and said, we own the freaking market. We don't gotta do much with these idiots. We got a shiny new controller. They're gonna eat that shit up, yo! And they've essentially have governed it themselves as such. And since Xbox is not doing too hot, they've kind of gotten away with it. But this is going to change. If Xbox has a very good year next year, I mean, I think that could decimate Sony to a certain extent. That could kill their sales and subscriptions to a certain extent. So yeah, they need to improve on every aspect of their business, and soon, before it starts to affect their bottom line in a big way. I mean, there's already rumors that they're remaking Horizon Zero Dawn for some reason. And even people who are fans of that game are like, why? why are you remaking that game? That's weird. Like they are becoming, I would say they're becoming like EA, where they're looking at what can make us the most money with the least amount of effort, and we'll do that. And they're doing that on top of that as well. They need a big shakeup with their philosophy, and if they don't do it and they don't do it soon, they're gonna find themselves in a whole lot of trouble. I mean, this has been going on for, I don't know, so like 2018, I would say, with them pulling out of doing press conferences in E3, from them doing like a lot of anti-consumer practices, remakes of games that didn't need remakes. Like, they've been doing this for a while now. To me, this is more indicative of them not offering a lot to people who have PlayStations. People are looking at my assumption is people who left, these 2 million that left, were saying, all right, fuck Sony, because they're not offering me a damn thing to stay on their console. And either I'm going to PC or I'm going to Xbox, because this is bullshit. That's my feeling of what happened on this.
I will clarify and say this is not us just kind of just shitting on Sony just to say that we can. I think I can speak for Wiz as well that we do want to see competition in the market. We do want to see PlayStation put a better foot forward to say, hey, we can hang with Game Pass. We can compete. We can show consumers that there is value in the PlayStation 5 ecosystem. There is value in the PlayStation Plus premium subscription. But yeah, I think they've just gotten too fat, complacent, and lazy and gone, hey, we basically own the market right now. Just everyone's playing PlayStation stuff. What's there to worry about? There's no reason to panic or worry. Just we can take our sweet, sweet time. And as with all things, if you say fat, lazy, and complacent, someone's just going to go and upend you. And once they upend you, it may be too late to recover. So I would like to see PlayStation put a better foot forward. Maybe start taking a really hard look on what they're doing wrong, and maybe kind of fess up and go, maybe we need to be a little bit more competitive. Maybe we need to offer a better value proposition. Maybe we need to do something to show gamers who are questioning the value of PlayStation Plus Premium that, we want to make it worth their while.
I think step one is to just get rid of Extra, make it a 2-tier system, and Premium's $15 a month. That would be my thing. There is no reason why Extra should be $15, and that's your Game Pass. But then for some reason your older games are Extra, because Xbox has older games on their Game Pass, and it's just $15. Like, I don't understand why you think you can charge more for your older games, but Xbox seems to think that it's not that necessary. Well, it's $15. Whatever. I think that's one error that they made on that end. But yeah, I think they need a complete philosophy overhaul on their side. And if they don't do it soon, yeah, you're gonna see Xbox come back like they did in the 360 after Sony screwed up on the PS3, and just get a bigger foothold in the market again. And this is at a time now where if they gain a foothold, Sony may not get it back. So they need to do something now. Thank you for listening to this podcast segment. The Capital Games podcast is done every week, and we post it on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as segments on YouTube. If you want to listen to another segment, you can listen to a new one right there on the screen. We also do a movie podcast called the Capital Games Movie Club. If you'd like, you can go ahead and click on that and see all the movies that we have reviewed from that point. Thank you for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon.